Hi Claire, hi Gladys.
Hi, Elvis.
Long time no see.
Long time no see. We should catch up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi.
Claire, you were asking me a question. Yeah, so I'm currently in Kenya. It's actually evening time over here. It's 3 p.m.
Right.
And I'm here, many reasons, but mostly because of my visa. I needed to change or rather like update my visa into a work visa, which
Right.
is taking a really long time. But in the meanwhile, I'm doing all sorts of things, failing and other things, experimenting with all sorts of ideas. So yeah, so that is what I'm currently doing. But I'm hoping to come back to Boston at some point as soon as my visa is ready.
Well, so I guess my question is if, do you think you'll be able to attend the conference?
As of now, I'm not certain because I have to. The only way I'll come to the US is through either I wait for my work visa to come out or I
Yeah.
apply for a visitor's visa, which from my experience sometimes it takes really long time to get an appointment at the embassy. So
Oh,
I'm not sure. I think I'll be able to confirm by mid-April.
okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to help?
So I will, before the end of this month, I'll decide whether if I don't have my work visa by the end of this month, then I'll go the route of applying for a visitor's visa. And in that case, I'll need an invitation letter
Okay.
to facilitate the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Elvis, you're Boston, right?
So at the moment, I'm in Ithaca, New York, to visit my wife, but I'm between either in Boston or Ithaca, New York.
Okay. So you could attend, do you think?
Yeah, I think so because I will be in the East Coast, so it's pretty close,
Okay.
I guess.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll cross our fingers. Gertrude, you know anybody at the embassy?
No. But I've heard of visa problems out of Kenya. It just takes a long time.
Yeah.
Long lines. Well, good morning, everyone. Elvis and Gladys,
Hey,
good to
morning.
meet you. Thanks for meeting with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is some uncertainty about you being able to join us, Gladys, but I still wanted to, I really want you to be there. So I'm hoping that both of you will be able to come. I want to talk a bit about um, our idea for the conference. And I think it was Claire who showed me your paper, and I thought this is really fits well within the theme. So we have been working for quite a while with other colleagues at Columbia University, and then in Europe on this issue of failure in science, in STEM. And much of it came out of our research doing oral history with women faculty who talk quite a bit about failure at different points of their early education, in graduate school, in the way that they teach, and of course during their academic careers. And so we realized that this was an important part of how they reflected on their life paths and their career paths, and that it was something important for us to investigate. But when we looked at the literature, so much of it was very, I would almost call it positive about failure in the sense that it was always seen as something that would inevitably lead to discovery and to success. So even if individual ideas or research failed, the idea was that overall, this was the path for science, that science is intrinsically embedded in failure because you all are working always on the edge of ignorance. This is how Stuart Firestein discusses it. And we don't reject that idea, but what the literature really doesn't pay any attention to is the extent to which disclosing failure, whether it's talking about failure in research or failure with regard to everyday life, that there was not a lot of discussion about whether it was available in an egalitarian way to everyone in the same way. Were there some people that were more at risk for failing or disclosing failures? And that's what got us to think about this question of if failure is intrinsic to science, important to science and engineering, are there people who are unable to fully capture the benefits of failure because of other kind of inequalities in the system? And that is what kind of got us thinking about this question. And then when I saw your work, it just resonated for me, because in part what Claire and I had also begun to talk about was this idea of failure mentoring, that how to respond to failure, even how to disclose failure, is not something that any of us sort of intuitively know, right? So if it's so important, which is what I take your argument to be, if it's so important, why aren't we more explicitly talking about it in how we train and mentor our students? Why is it such an invisible part of their evolution into their careers, et cetera? So that's what really drew me to your work. And I was so excited about it. So the conference is both going to take on that issue of, is there a way to normalize failure that doesn't put an unequal burden on some members of the STEM community than others? And that's kind of the approach we're taking.
Right.
So so I wanted to ask, what are the ways that we were thinking about clustering? I really wanted to come to this panel because we're beginning to organize it to the conference. So one of the things we thought about was a panel that would, Claire, who did we decide might be?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm just quickly flipping the page. Give me 1 second.
Oh, Caitlin Wiley.
Right.
Yeah, we have a colleague in engineering who writes about the way that faculty members use their error stories to train postdocs in the lab. They tell stories about, the experiment that failed or the paper that didn't go through. And she sees that they integrate it in the immediate situation of training, whether they're coming together as a lab group and so on. So error stories as a technology of teaching is what Caitlin is really interested in particularly with the relationship between postdocs and their mentors and advisors, which I think your work fits really nicely in.
I'm just putting the link to her paper in the chat for you all.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we're going to have a day of the first day is going to be, we'll have an opening speaker and perhaps interactive theater. We'll have lunch, then we'll have in the afternoon, we'll have sort of a community conversation that's going to be facilitated around, around failure disclosure. Because this is not, we're not asking people to come necessarily and disclose their, everybody gets to pass the mic and disclose their failures. That's not the point. Then the second day is going to be more scholarly papers and panels on a variety of topics, sort of walking through the various scholarship and the way different kinds of scholars are looking at failure. So we have Erica Hamden, I don't know if you know her, she's an astrophysicist and she gave a TED Talk on the failure of her telescope to launch the $1 billion telescope.
Balloon telescope, yeah.
Yeah, which I'll also in a minute put in the chat. Melanie Steffen is coming, who you may know because she
wrote the first paper.
original
Yes, the
failures. Yeah,
failures,
she's
yeah.
coming. So she'll probably give a session about that. We talked about Caitlin. Another of our colleagues wants to organize a panel around failure in race. There's a woman actually found through someone talking about your paper, Celia Arroyo. Do you know her? She's in England, and she sort of writes about bullying as institutional failure. Let's see what else.
The academic bullying, yeah.
That's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And then fieldwork, power, gender, vulnerability, relations. Ellie Harwell, who's a geographer from the UK, is coming, and she and Gertrude will probably go together. And then we have a couple of people talking about setbacks and societal constraints on participation in science. So that'll be day 2, and then day 3 we'll come back together and as a group talk about where do we go from here. You know, in a success-driven university, what do we do with all of this? And so we would love to have you. And the conference is going to be, you've probably seen, words at resort. Oops. Let me just see if I can't.
You're going to share where Boar's Head is?
Yes. So it's here in Charlottesville, right near the university, but it's going to be at this place called the Boar's Head Resort, which is, I can actually show you. And so, you know, it's in the Virginia countryside. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. They have hiking trails, pools, sports club, you know, the whole shebang. Let's see if they have any. I was just trying to find pictures. Well, anyway, and so our grant allows us to offer you, if you can come, we'll take care of your travel, or at least help with it, and your lodging and your meals. So there's no cost to attend the conference. And it's, you know, so you'd come in the day before, leave whenever you want, but most people probably leave on day 3. It's a half day. So if that helps, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think what we could have held the conference at the university, but I think what we wanted to do was to create a sense of community around these conversations, and a sense of a kind of trust and commitment to talking rigorously around these issues in order to begin to ask questions about, well, how, you know, what would it need to transform the STEM context to allow for a more robust understanding of failure in all its dimensions, which I think in a way your work is asking us to take, you know, to consider, to imagine that future in a sense.
Right.
And so it's important that it's not a conference where we're going to be grinding out day after day. We want to create a lot of space for people to meet one another, to talk, potentially have meetings that might lead to future collaborations. We are going to call them, I think we call them innovation dates. You know, so we're inviting people to get together and kind of brainstorm around issues that they might then take further. And we do have a relationship with NSF, and I think in a way, if we can show that there's more work to be done, it's possible that we could go in for a larger grant that might bring some of us together around this set of issue and make it more visible. So we're hoping that people connect and might lead to kind of future work together. So I wanted to ask, though, what has been the response to the paper, and then how did you decide to write it together?
Yeah.
Do you want to answer the first part, Elvis?
So, what is the response of the paper we get?
Yeah, and how do you decide to write this paper?
Yeah,
Very
I can talk briefly, and Gladys can follow up. So, first of all, Gladys is an amazing woman. She's a Rhodes Scholar and the Schmidt Science Fellow, and I actually follow a lot of advice of Gladys before I get the Schmidt Science Fellowship, and I think in part due to her help, I got the fellowship as well. So we are part of the same community of Schmidt Science Fellows, and the mission for that fellowship is to ask fellows to pivot into something entirely different during the postdoc training. So you get a PhD in a certain field, and then you need to have a strong pivot and to convince them that, okay, you can do the pivot, and the pivot is big enough, and they will support you for either 1 or 2 years during a postdoc, and you can do whatever you want to do. You just need to convince them you are the person to do that. And as the nature of the program is to ask people to pivot into something different, so there's inevitably going to be a lot of failures because you are not trained in that field. And also I spoke to Gladys, and I saw she also has a passion on teaching and educating other junior researchers. So both of us had ambition of doing that. So why not just share our failures to empower other people? Because from outside, okay, we are Schmidt Science Fellows. We're pretty successful in quotation marks in our career stage. But there's so many things we didn't disclose. So we think this is perfect timing. And Gladys, feel free to add more.
That is so cool. That idea of pivoting and anticipating failure as a part of that pivoting, and still pivoting, still taking the step. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. And I think also the fact that I think the fellowship made it clear, because I think most of us were worried. I was in the second cohort, so we were still like experimental cohort, and everyone was worried about what the pivot will do to our careers. Like you will be spending 2 years, no research paper.
Right.
And they made it clear that they'll be working with us through the journey. Like, we've got you. And I think it was really easy to then like take the risk and pivot, like Elvis was saying. So personally, the reason why, so we met through Schmidt Science Fellowship. I'm in the senior year, and Elvis.
I'm the 5th cohort. Yeah, 2022 cohort.
Okay, yeah. So, so personally, and I think you already know this, and there is a lot of research work on this. The more, anytime you are in a community and you're a minority, be it in terms of color, religion, wherever, there is this temptation to, I don't know, consciously or subconsciously, even from you as a person, to want to represent the entire tribe. Yeah. It might be coming from you, or like the other people are expecting you to represent the entire tribe. So this was the situation for me when I joined Oxford to do my PhD. I was the only Black woman in the entire lab of 40-something people. Wow. I was the only. We were 3 women out of something PhD and postdocs and master students, and I was the only one. We were only 2 Black students. So I was really at the very hard intersection of my minority group identity, and it was difficult to just say the least. It was difficult, and then I remember struggling a lot because then most of my problems people didn't relate. And there is this one particular moment that jumped out to me, and the reason why I like to voluntarily speak about failures and to be vulnerable and to be human being. So there is this day, I think I was actually contemplating quitting PhD, or rather like maybe pausing it, because I thought I was the only one struggling. And I think most of these Ivy Leagues or these big unis, they do a lot of injustice because people know how to pretend, and you walk around the campus and you think you are the only one feeling right? So there is this Friday, I was so depressed. We had a party. We had a party, women in tech. We had a women in tech society, women in engineering society, and I survived my PhD because of that society. Like we used to share stories and comfort each other. So we this is my first year, like first few weeks, first few months, and I'm in this party. I'm not enjoying the party because I'm just wondering, like people are having fun. They seem to know what they are doing. They came from the lab. I'm lost. And around 9 p.m., people were tipsy, thanks to wine. Thanks to the power of wine. No, people were human beings for the first time. And I remember I was honest, and I was having this candid conversation with Niharika, my friend, one of the other women. We were only three. We were actually two PhD students. The other one was a postdoc. And she was the one who started the women in engineering thing because she knew. She had that experience when she was doing a PhD, and she wanted to like collect all of us to work together. Anyway, so I was telling Niharika, I don't know what I'm doing with my PhD. And then she laughed. I mean, she was slightly tipsy by that time. And she was like, I'm about to write my thesis. I'm in my third year, my fourth year, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I just collected some data today. I don't know what these things mean, but I'm going to write the thesis. And do you know?
Yes.
That was it. That was it.
Breakthrough.
That was it. And that was it. And all the time, especially when I'm interacting with minority women in tech, Black people, Black women in tech, and all that. Like I always think about someone who might be struggling, and they see me and they see this someone shining, and they don't know that I also struggle. And so anyway, so I like to volunteer and talk about failure. In fact, there is this other project that we are collaborating with Elvis. It's a podcast. So Elvis will be one of my guests in the coming weeks. So maybe by the time we are doing the conference, we will have some stories. And as you can see here, I'm really passionate about taking risks and dealing with failure, fear, and imposter syndrome. And I challenge every guest that I have on the platform, on the podcast that I recently started. I challenge them to tell us, like, without sugar coating, to tell us a moment when they took a risk, the moment when they dealt with a failure, or a moment they felt like an imposter. And it's so powerful. Like people and students, my main audience I'm targeting students, undergrad, grad students, and early career professionals. And I think taking risks, failure, and fear and imposter syndrome, I think they're really powerful and critical themes that we need to be discussing openly. And that is why I'm really excited about this conference.
That is cool.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Well, I have some follow. We may just have to have a sort of have y'all up there and ask you questions. Why do you think the disclosure at that party, wine included, was what created in you a different mindset? What about it? What about disclosure was transformative in that way?
Because for the first time, I actually established that I wasn't an imposter. I wasn't the only one. There were other people struggling with this thing, and I had a tribe of people having similar struggles, and so it was comforting. And that's why disclosing is important. Yeah. And I'm happy Elvis, I don't know if you remember, when we were writing this paper and Nature guys found it very interesting. And we were actually discussing, why aren't people talking about this thing, especially like early careers people? Anyway, so and I think Elvis, you actually recommended, you were saying, we were discussing, and I think your thoughts were, we were wishing that universities and conferences could actually make it form of, like a norm for, and so this is excellent. The conference.
Yeah, I can definitely remember our conversation. So I think in one of the sections for our article, we actually call for both institutional support and also awareness from the society to just be open up about failure. I also wanted to add something really quick. Actually, because of the in part due to our article, since I was in very close relationship with the dean of grad school and Cornell. So after that article, because I spoke to her often, that actually inspired Cornell Grad School to launch a series, which I will just copy paste in the chat here. That's called Faculty Who Failed Series. So grad school actually interviewed, I think, several deans and vice provost at Cornell, for faculty members to talk about their failures in grad school as a part of the training to our grad students. So I think it's definitely exciting to see, because of our, in part due to our effort, people are taking actions, and I also think the conference is a great avenue to gather people and to forge potential synergies for future collaboration. Because I think this is a very important topic. And also after we wrote an article,
Welcome as we
after we wrote that article, we just get so many different requests from people. Either they tell, okay, thanks for writing this article, and they also share, okay, this is really important and actually help some of them during their PhDs. And also we get people from, even established professors, they ask us to just write that note to us. So we feel like this is a very important topic, and thanks for organizing this conference dedicated for disclosing failure. That's really amazing work.
Yeah, thanks, Elvis, and thank you for your work. There's another thing you said that sort of when you described the Schmidt Fellowship Program. One of the ways we are socialized into the academy is that you have a really clear trajectory of your work. One thing flows to the other. I mean, even when you're a grad student, people are already asking, oh, what's your next project? There's a sense that you're just moving seamlessly from one thing to the other. And in this particular context, people are asking you to pivot. And you said that, part of the thing that was frightening was, or maybe Gladys said, once you pivoted, what if it's a dead end? The flow will be disrupted.
Right.
And that's a real risk, which I think is the contradiction about it for me, in doing this work, is that most of us in the academy face failures just basically, and I think I heard Gladys talk about this in one of her YouTube things. That you're always going to have failures when you submit papers. It's inevitable.
Or grants.
Or grants, yeah.
And grants, you're going to get, what's the hit rate? It's really low. So that there's the myth of this sort of trajectory that's just seamless. But in our daily experiences, there are all these failures that you just have to learn how to deal with. You just look at the data and you're going to get a downturn. To me, it's just this contradiction in the way the system is organized. On the one hand, around the daily, every ordinary experience of failure, and on the other hand, this idea of this flow where you're just working in this trajectory towards, so I just noticed that, and I can see how the Schmidt program is almost like in kind of socializing you to be in a state of panic about pivoting and then do it. Do you know what I mean? That idea.
Yeah.
That making it really explicit.
And also wanted to add something about the Schmidt Fellows Program, which is not only they provide you with the money in order you do the research that you're passionate about, but also the training is so every year, especially in the first year, we have the 3 global meetings, which is science leadership training. And what is powerful about that is that it actually brings the fellows from the same cohort together, because we are all pivoting, we are all failing,
Right.
and we are all sharing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
having
yeah.
that kind of environment, so people open up to talk about their challenges, that so that you feel you are not the only person that's failing. That's I think
Right.
more important about the fellowship program. It's not only about the money, it's also about the training and also the community. And right now we are moving into I think the eighth cohort, and every year we will have 32-ish fellows from across the globe. So we are actually
Wow.
building a community of over 150 people together, and also this is a lifelong community. When we advance into the senior fellows program, they will also fly you to the senior fellows conference, and then people at different stages. Some of us are already assistant professors at different universities. Some and entrepreneurship tracks, and some probably they will use the training they get from their pivot to solve the problem in the old discipline. Some will apply the techniques in the old discipline to solve problem in the new field. The people are doing different things, but having this kind of community, this is the most important part. And I think
Yeah,
the
yeah,
conference
wow.
can also serve as a similar role to bring people together who care about failure, who can open up, just be open minded to talk about that. That's I think what is very interesting part we look forward to from the conference.
Yeah, right. Looking
Well, it,
forward to talking about failure. That's, yeah.
well,
And,
it,
yeah, go ahead, Claire.
no, I mean, it fosters creativity when
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
have
yeah,
that sort
yeah,
of incubator where you're allowed to just go wild and try something completely different, even
yeah,
though at first it might be
yeah,
really tough, but
yeah.
that's in its purest form what
We,
some of the scholars that we talk to think that failure will do. So,
right. And I like that idea of, I mean, because it also handles the issue of a kind of inequality of failure, because everybody in the group is in some way experiencing and talking about and working through failure, right? So it kind of makes it, I think you all use the word normalize. Um, and I think that is a form of kind of creating equity of access to failure in a way that's beneficial. It's a small model of how that might work. Yeah. That's fascinating. And I am not ignoring Gladys's point that, I mean, part of what she described in her world at Oxford is that it was inequitable. It was systemic failure of having, so few people from different parts of the world, so few women, so few people of color, and also at the same time ignoring that that's actually what's happening. So she has to navigate it all on her own, and the institution sort of is blind to what that might be like. And so I think there's this institutional failure too that Gladys describes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I was going to ask, well, what do you think you might present at the conference? But I think we almost have a sense of what it might look like.
One thing I forgot to mention here is that I was actually raised by my grandmother, who was a farmer and later was a trash picker in rural China. So partly due to her selling the bottles she collected from the landfills, she supported my education. So
Wow.
that's where I came from, and also during my PhD, I got experience to get the education from Cornell, and that during that experience, I because of my work, I led on Forbes 30 for North America, and so that's something I think is almost mission impossible. If I look back,
Yes.
if
Yes.
any of the things go wrong, I will never
Yes.
be the person that I am today. So
Yeah.
I guess
But your
having
grandmother didn't think it was mission impossible.
yeah, so so I just wanted to
That is so
yeah,
cool.
so this is actually my grandmother.
Let me
I
see her. Oh
Oh,
my
wow.
Yeah,
gosh.
so I
Now
wrote
you're
an
gonna make
article.
me cry. Oh
Yeah, I
no.
wrote an article last year on
Oh,
Science to talk
A
about the
a
story.
secret part-time job. Oh, she's a
Yeah,
trash picker.
so I
Wow.
talk
oh
about
my
that.
gosh.
So I guess this is also one of the I think the inspiration for me to write about failure, and also I actually also wrote about my mental health challenges in
Yeah.
another Nature publication. So and
Yeah.
also wrote I think 17 op-eds together on different outlets, and I don't
Yeah.
see that as a distraction of my work, but I see as a
Mhm.
way as for me as a scientist to interface with the society, especially with how I navigated all of this. I just wanted to let people know,
Oh
okay,
my
this
goodness.
is you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
If my
Mm-hmm.
story can inspire maybe another child in a not very a rich area,
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole point. If some
Yeah.
person can take inspiration from what I shared, that's the
Yes.
best part.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Oh.
Amazing. Send me that, Elvis, will you?
Oh, Elvis, we're gonna have
Absolutely.
to put that on the website with Gladys's
Really
work too.
No, but
Yeah.
there is that narrative too in academics that, we don't need money. We
Right.
we don't talk about money. We come
Right.
from, and then when you look
Yes. We don't
at,
talk about class, social class.
right,
Yes.
and yet when you look at the academics of 20, 30 years ago, 40
Mm-hmm.
years ago, um, they were all white men from
Yeah.
well-to-do
Mhm.
families. I mean, who could
Mm-hmm.
do it otherwise? No one,
Mm-hmm.
and so this notion that,
My
so
gosh.
you feel if you're not that, then
Mhm.
you
You
feel
don't quite
another kind of,
belong. Yeah. Yeah.
where is your tribe? Who are the
Right.
others who are struggling with that?
Yeah.
Um, anyway,
Oh, that, my goodness. Okay, Elvis, now you just had my heart all beating. Oh, that's amazing to see Grandma there sitting up with her little one, her little one.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
That is so cool. And
is
I like also what you're saying about the way you try to. I see both of you actually doing that, navigating a kind of scientific career and also having this public dimension of the work,
mhm.
and which is quote unquote a distraction, perhaps you might perceive it as such,
Yep.
but you see it as pivotal to the work you're doing as a scientist,
Mhm.
not separate from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Claire, I think we're going to have to do everything we can to get both of our colleagues
yeah. I
to
mean, we'll
Charlottesville.
bring you here if you want to come. I was curious if you have any favorite colleagues who are thinking about this, or not colleagues, people who are out there whose work you admire that you'd like us to invite. Let us know.
Yeah, please do and share with them.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And the other thing too is it's almost like without the Schmidt sort of um, opportunity, you and Gladys may never have met. Do you know what I
yes,
Yeah,
mean?
that's
And I
true.
think that the other thing, the way these kinds of contexts, like the conference, kind of bring people together that in any other circumstance, given their different careers, their different fields, may never have intersected. And look at the powerful stuff that comes out of that, And I think that the other thing we're trying to do with the conference is sort of bringing people together from these different spheres in conversation and to see what comes out of it. Yeah.
sounds really. It's
Yeah. Any other questions? I think we.
I know what I was going to do. But Erica's talking there.
Oh yeah.
She's also hilarious on Instagram. She does little stories about science and like just funny things. Here's Erica. That's her TED Talk, and then I'll just show you Instagram.
I just dropped the link for the article I just showed you earlier.
Oh, thank you. Let me just grab it up here. Come on.
And I hope you, I'm assuming we have permission to put the both articles on the website, just as, because some of our STEM colleagues are saying that scientists and engineers won't really understand what we mean by failure disclosure. And so we want to put on the website sort of examples where they begin to understand, because it's not necessarily the language they might use. So if that's okay with you, we'll put those on the website as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, it's been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. And we will assume that you will join us, and then hope that Gladys, you're able to get the visa, and then please keep in touch with us so that we can work with you.
So with matters of visa, so you're talking about going to the U.S. Embassy. That's what takes a long time?
So you apply online and then you wait for an appointment to go there to take your biometrics and do an interview. That can take up to 1 year.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
I mean, is it worth trying to for us to try to pull a few strings? I mean, such as we might have strings to pull.
I mean, I think they have in cases of emergency, or like if it's needed, as long as there is as long as you can prove sufficiently that it's urgently needed, I think sometimes they can they can give you an earlier slot.
A bump.
So I think what I'll do, let me touch base around 20th or 20 something of March.
Okay.
And then I think we can plan from there.
Okay, great. Yeah. And
Hopefully it'll come through.
I'm not going to say it out loud now, but I will, that if need be, we can Zoom you in, but I don't want that to be what happens. So.
Yeah, I mean, the results looks very interesting. I would like to be
It's
there.
going to be
and
so,
also the people to meet people like.
Oh my God, it's going to be so exciting. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Be good.
Yeah. But anyway.
Wonderful talking to you both.
Elvis, I'll send you some the contact. So how this works is we have a travel agent who works with the university, and you just get in touch with her and organize your. You don't have to do it right today, but when you're ready.
Sure.
And then you don't have to put money forward and get it back. It's paid by us, and then you just choose your flight. Sure. It's probably from New York there's a direct flight to Charlottesville. From Boston there isn't. There is one to Richmond, which is about an hour away.
I see.
And someone could come and get you. I don't think you need to rent a car unless you want to, but I wouldn't think you need to. And for you, Gladys, you would probably come into Washington, D.C. would be the easiest. And either someone come get you or you take, anyway, we'll figure all that out.
The flights are easy in the sense of even if you go to Washington, there are a number of flights to Charlottesville. And from Boston, there are a couple of hubs, Charlotte, Atlanta, D.C., that will get you to Charlottesville. And so it's pretty seamless.
Yeah, and the travel agent will help you.
And yes, and Brenda.
You can choose what you want. You don't have to take the red eye or whatever.
Yeah, she will work with you. And I've worked with her a lot, and she's very good. And then you just pick the itinerary that makes most sense to you, and then she'll book it and then invoice the university. Or grant, I should say. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Perfect. Wonderful meeting you.
Wonderful meeting you both. We're so excited.
Excited.
Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure is ours.
All right. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Take care.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.